What is up?
Hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can't see
You've
you.
shrunk you
Maybe.
shrunk a few sizes though since the last time we talked. Oh, okay. Now
What
your
is
video's
going
coming
on?
on. There's a very small version of your head in the middle of the
Yeah, I don't know why I keep turning it on, but it's not turning on. Maybe it must be a setting here.
Yeah, you might need to close out of Discord and come back in. It's been giving issues lately.
Close out of what?
You might need to close out of Discord and then come back in. It's been giving some issues lately.
I'll try that.
What's up, Radar Shark? Why'd you say uh-oh and then never mind? What's going on, man? Did I miss something? No, no, no. Come on, you're here enough. You know, I gotta wait for the cuckoo clock to finish before I can hop on. And this cuckoo clock loves to sing, especially once we get closer to the 20 or the, I guess you'd call it the 0Z portion of the day. That thing is humming along. So, yeah, 0Z mentioned.
Doing the same thing.
Weird.
I click turn on
You
camera. It says video
is there maybe
connected.
a permission on your computer that needs to be adjusted, or are you on the desktop app, or are you in the browser? All right. Give folks a chance to get in here. I'm going to go ahead and send out a tweet real quick. Here we go. Just a second, everyone. Gonna tweet out to let everybody know that Aaron's about to start talking. All right, it has been sent. A tweet. What's that? Yeah, I guess they're technically posts now. Right.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Hey, yeah, I can hear and see you. What's going on?
My laptop actually crashed, and it's not a Windows PC, it's a Mac. So it's a rare event for a Mac to crash.
Yeah, man, that does not happen too often. So,
No, and then when it restarted, it gave I've only seen this one other time. It was like a black and white error screen that said your basically your laptop crashed and had an error and had to restart because of a problem, but very vague. And it
yeah,
was in like five different languages.
come to think of it, I've had a MacBook since I believe 2013, a couple of different ones, but I don't think I've ever had a situation where it's crashed in that entire 13, 14 years.
Yeah, I've had like three Macs, either MacBooks or I had an iMac, one of the big ones. And, I think I've only had a crash like that, like, that might be the only second time I've ever had a crash like that.
Yep, yep. So, I appreciate those of you who did show up. I'm guessing the numbers are lower. I anticipated that would be the case because we are going to be repeating a topic previously. But that's for good reason. It's because if you folks will remember back in February, we decided to switch over from having the discussions be more free form with all of your questions and me jumping in, interrupting the coaches. and we decided to make it the presentation straight through for 10, 15, 20 minutes at the beginning. Then we open up the rest of the time for people to chat and ask questions and whatnot. And that has just gone so well over the past 4 or 5 months that we decided to actually go back. And since we started doing group coaching sessions, I believe it was either the end of October or the beginning of November last year in 2025. So there weren't a whole lot of them that occurred before we switched formats at the beginning of February. We decided we would just go back so that way we didn't waste all those valuable presentations that coaches like Aaron put together, and we would have them just straight through one shot it again. That way we had it forever memorialized in a nice, tightly wrapped piece of content. And then we would open up the floor for questions and all that jazz. So really cool to have all of you folks out here. And if you guys are watching the on-demand replay, that is the reason why this seems familiar. But I promise, even if you saw his original Canada chasing presentation, this one's going to be even better because he's not going to have his train of thought interrupted like 15 times by me asking a stupid question, which was pretty much what the early group coaching sessions were. So, with all of that introduction out of the way, Aaron, I will let you go ahead and take it from the top if you are ready. You can share your screen whenever you're good to go.
Yeah, sure. I don't even, did you ask me about your questions? I don't remember it being too bad. I think I
I did, yeah.
well, I think I kind of just tried to roll with it anyway. The share screen option is grayed out.
Is it? What on earth?
Yeah,
Okay,
share your
so
screen grayed out.
let me.
And I am in the app, and I have done it before. But I thought you had to like, oh wait, hold on. There's another button here, share your screen. Let me try this one. Hold on. Okay. Did that work?
There we go. Boom. 1440p, 60 FPS. Aaron's going to be sharing in high def over there. Love it. Cool,
Yeah.
cool. Well, I'm going to fade into the background. So, Aaron, if you need anything, I'm just a holler away. But other than that, I'll let you take it away.
Okay. So you can see my screen and you can see me, right?
Yep. I see both of you.
Okay. Is it like, is it me? Which one's bigger, the screen or me?
So, Discord actually gives the option for people to choose which of the three screens they want to focus on. So, people can either have like the tri view up with all three of us, or they can just expand
Okay,
the
good.
screen
So
share, which is.
they can decide. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, and then when we record these sessions, our guest cat, the guy down in the audience, who's my brother, also happens to be the guy that records all these. He makes the screen share full screen, so that way when we post these later for the replay, they'll see everything up on screen.
Got it. Wait a minute. Is that the real Storm Chaser Nick in the chat? Like the real dude?
He, yeah,
Is that
he had office hours 2 nights ago, man. We shot the ship for about 60 minutes.
he does stuff?
Yeah.
Can you bring him? I want to hear him talk. Storm Chaser
Okay,
Nick.
hold
Can you
on, hold on.
speak? I can't do
Nick,
this
you
until he speaks.
Nick, you can decline if you don't want to come up on the stage right now, but okay, he's up here. What's
What's
going on,
up?
Nick?
Not much.
What's up?
What's up, Aaron?
How's it going?
Pretty good.
Do you even chase, man, or do you just like bullshit with pictures of people on the internet?
I mean, I do, but I would say 90% is more the BS with pictures of people.
Sweet. Do you take like chase cations and shit and come out and chase?
Uh, not recently. I was telling everyone the other night I was going to this May and June, but it didn't work out. I had some personal issues, so but I'm gonna
Gotcha.
try next year for sure. Is I'm gonna definitely gonna be out.
Yeah, sweet. All right, man. I just had to hear
Aaron,
your voice, like, cause you could have been fake for all I know. Just
I get
I
that a
don't even
lot,
know.
actually.
You could have been
Yeah,
a
I get
bot,
that.
a fucking a Russian bot or something,
Yep.
infiltrating storm chasers. So who the hell knows?
Yep.
Aaron, I don't do a good job at advertising this, but Nick actually creates and has since the beginning of SCC last year in April. He creates all the memes for our social media accounts.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
You really got your work cut out for you with this AI now. You got some competition.
Yeah, it's true, but
Mm.
I'll take a challenge.
Yeah, you can't. AI is never gonna. you have a personal bond with storm chasers over X. So
Yep.
AI would never be able to replicate that. So it takes years to build that kind of relationship of bullshitting. So
That's right.
And Aaron, this is really funny that you even mentioned it because Nick and I talked back and forth for a little while about whether or not we wanted him to reveal his face or stay behind the Twitter logo. And we
yeah,
decided it would be more funny if we kind of just kept him behind the logo so he stayed a little mysterious.
I agree. You should just, I mean, keep running with it.
Yeah.
Get some Skyline chili and run with that logo, man.
Oh man, I wish I was in. I wish I could right now. That sounds good.
Yeah. All right, I guess we should talk about storm. Are you actually here to like learn about storm chasing in Canada, storm chaser Nick? Or are you just here to like screw with me?
A little of both, 50-50.
All right, all right, all right.
All right, Nick, thanks for jumping up here, man.
All right. See you guys.
Yeah.
See ya. Okay, okay. So you can see my screen, right? See this
Yes, sir.
chasing Canada. So Canadians like to say A. I'm not Canadian, but I grew up in northern Indiana, real close to Canada. And I'll tell you that when I was growing up in Indiana, I was playing video games on this service called M Player. It's like way ahead of its time, and I played Quake, and it was like it was bringing online. It was before there was like Xboxes and online gaming, but it was like a gaming room where you could meet up and play this first person shooter Quake. Anyway, I played with these Canadians, and that was the first experience I ever had Canadians, and they just kept saying hey, So anyway, chasing in Canada. Uh, chasing in Canada is, you know, it's very similar to chasing in the USA. It's also, there's quite a few differences, but not, like extravagant differences, but it is, different countries. So in Canada, for example, they use the metric system. So while you driving down the highway, you cross the border, you see a speed limit sign that says 100. That's not 100 miles per hour. That's 100 kilometers an hour. So just some subtle differences like that. But my first time chasing in Canada was in 2018. So quite a, I mean, was I like 8 years ago now? And a lot's changed with forecasting and weather since 2018. So back in 2018, we pretty much just had like radar scope for radar. And then you had like some tools for forecasting online, like College of DuPage. That's what I was using way back then. The College of DuPage site for like models and stuff like that. There was also like tornado twister data or something like that. I don't remember. But back then, just basically radar scope and just like what you had in the States, uh, but not a lot of tools back then, so it made it kind of scary and difficult to go chase in Canada. But I made the long trek in 2018. I was living in Texas at the time, drove up across the border, drove into Canada, uh, went to this weird gas station and was about to go pump gas, and then they decided they were gonna they pump the gas for you there in Canada. It's there's no self-service. At least some of the gas stations, like the co-op ones, you'll see these co-op gas stations all over the place. And we'll talk about co-op gas stations and stuff here in a bit. Um, but yeah, so I crossed the border and I into Saskatchewan, and went through the border, and they kind of hassled me when I went through the border because I had all this camera equipment, and I was in a Jeep Grand Cherokee. It looked like a police vehicle with like the laptop up and Texas plates, and so they actually made me pull over to secondary and search my vehicle for guns and all this stuff. And of course, I didn't have any guns, and everything was fine. But across the border, and I didn't know about how to figure out about weather. I just knew that there was severe weather coming to Canada, uh, and I was gonna go chase it. And so I get across the border. I go to this little lake just across the border. I could see the sky starting to get dark a little bit. I guess that's the storm system moving in. Next thing I know, as I'm like, well, I better get in position to chase the storm because it's probably about that time. Next thing I know, I'm getting an alert on my phone about a tornado warning. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? Like, how is there already a tornado warning? Uh, I look on radar and I see like, oh, there's a storm, but it's like 300 miles or 200 miles away, or 100, not 200 miles, but quite a long ways away for me to get a tornado warning. So I'm like, what the heck's going on? So So I'm like, oh, I almost missed the storm, but I get into position, chase the storm, chase it across southern Canada from Saskatchewan into Manitoba. Uh, End up almost running out of gas because all the power gets knocked out, and saw kind of a weak tornado, but not a real good tornado, and yeah, eventually I ran out of gas, but some local people saved me with some old gas from an old vehicle they had laying around because the gas stations couldn't get all the power was out, so I couldn't get gas. So I got enough gas to limp to this next little town. They had a hotel, they had power. Uh, got a hotel, and that was my first chase in Canada. So it was quite an experience. I went into it not knowing anything. I didn't have anyone telling me anything about how to chase Canada. I didn't have tornado coaching and something like this. People giving me their first experiences in Canada because I was kind of there wasn't a lot of people chasing in Canada from the States back then. I was I think Reed had chased a few times and a few other guys had chased a few times in Canada, but other than that, most people didn't even fathom trying to chase in Canada. So fast forward another year, and I eventually ended up moving to Canada. I met my wife on X Twitter, and she's Canadian, and I ended up moving to Canada. And so for the last 7 years, I've been chasing across all the Canadian provinces in Canada. So that is a good time to segue into this little graphic. So the Canadian prairie is ideally where you want to chase storms in Canada. To the west here, you've got British Columbia and you got the Rocky Mountains. So just west of Calgary and west of Edmonton, that's where the Rocky Mountains start, all the way to the coast until you get to the coast. So you're not really going to be able to chase in British Columbia. But the prairie starts here in Alberta, right at the foothills where Calgary is, and north up to Edmonton, and beautiful country up here to the west. In fact, this is probably my favorite place in the world to chase storms is here in these foothills just east of the Rockies in Alberta. Other than my other really favorite place, actually there's storms there today, is in this Oklahoma Panhandle and southwestern Kansas, southeastern Colorado. Love chasing in here. But this is beautiful. The foothills up here in Canada. It's just remarkable. There's a lot of these old logging roads and stuff, and you can get real deep in there with no cell service. Those Starlinks really beneficial out there. But yeah, just really beautiful country and just very different from anything you're really gonna experience down here in the Great Plains or anywhere in the States for that matter. So, and then your next province over is Saskatchewan, and lots of storm chasing in Saskatchewan. You get a lot of storms that come up from Montana and into the Saskatchewan, or not always just up from there. We get storms that come off the Rockies, off the foothills of that, or that fire off of this energy that's coming due west and moves across the prairies here. But and then the next prairie province is Manitoba. That's where I'm at, right down here, where the P is in prairie. And then as you get east in Manitoba, you get to Winnipeg, and you really can't. You could try and chase as you get east of Winnipeg, but starts getting real difficult real fast as you get east into Ontario. This is all trees in Ontario, um, and pretty much trees and water, lakes and stuff, all the way until you get to the Atlantic Ocean, Nova Scotia. So, but yeah, I know some guys. There's some open areas here in like Ontario, like in the Toronto, like you can see it's kind of opens up here, kind of like plains there. Um, so yeah, so you could definitely. I know there's a Canadian that works for the Weather Network who lives out there, and he chases there in Ontario all the time. But yeah, the Canadian prairie, just like down south, you've got Gulf moisture that works its way up into the plains with the meeting the cooler, drier air off the Rockies, and we get our storms. Now, one difference is that as you get further north here, the Canadian prairie is quite a long ways away from the source of moisture. Uh, so that can limit things. And, we already had some early season chasing here in Canada this season. And and it didn't really it produced there was one decent tornado in eastern Saskatchewan on one of the days. But other than that, most of the chases were kind of a bust for tornadoes, and I wasn't really too surprised by that. Because the main one of the main problems is that us being and are kind of jumping ahead here. And we're not going to go in order as you see on the screen here. Like kind of talking about weather setups now with Gulf moisture versus evapotranspiration. So one of the reasons why this early stuff, a lot of storm chasers came up from the States for their first chase in Canada recently. But it was very early, it's June and they're not even in July yet, right? It's June 25th. This was like 2 weeks ago. So it was like mid to early June chasing in Manitoba. And, you know, peak chasing in Manitoba is generally is later in the season, like early August when it's really, really hot, warm. Uh, but we had, it was kind of it was kind of warm early in the season here in Canada. Other than actually the last week or two, it's been kind of cool. There's a nice CU tower out my window here. uh, but yeah, so it's been kind of cool lately. But August, it gets really, really warm. But the one most important thing is that I wasn't expecting this last setup to do too well because we didn't have any crops in, no canola, no flax, and uh, they give off a lot of moisture through evapotranspiration. So it gets really, really hot in the summer. Those plants, those crops are pulling moisture up out of the ground uh, through their root system, up through their stems, and then into their leaves. And they're using that water to photosynthesize and create energy, but they're also using that water to cool themselves down by basically sweating like we do. So evapotranspiration, they release moisture into the atmosphere, and that builds up the dew points. And as the summer continues on, you just get this sea of dews from the crops that builds up, and storms can tap into that, and that can help kind of being so far away from the Gulf makes up for that lack of moisture, especially in the summer. If you've got a big high pressure ridge of high pressure that's just been parked, that death ridge is just parked over the states all summer and not allowing that transport of moisture through the Great Plains up to Canada. Well, you got to get that moisture somewhere, and it comes from those crops. So I suspect this summer, this is going to be a good season here in Canada because it's already been pretty decent. It's already been pretty active. It's the next couple of weeks here in Canada actually look pretty active, and we've had a lot of rain, so there's going to be a lot of moisture in the ground for all the crops to really have a bumper crop of everything. The grasslands, the trees, the agricultural crops should really grow well this late spring and early summer that we're getting into. And I think we keep getting this good stormy pattern. We should probably get some good storms coming into July and August. So uh and then we'll talk about weather setup. So continue on that topic. Big lows versus more subtle disturbances. So the early season setups that we had is in June, those were kind of those big low pressure surface lows coming through, kind of ripping into Canada from the southwest. Kind of, your traditional early season storm setups, big synoptic setups with those big lows, big trough ejecting out, and then you get those severe. So it's actually like don't usually get that here in Canada because usually our setups are later in the summer, and you're kind of getting storms that are maybe like riding over that ridge of high pressure just to our south, or uh getting kind of more subtle, subtle little disturbance off the Rockies in Alberta, coming through the prairies and getting some storms that way. So kind of like what's going on in the States right now. Like we don't have any big troughs ejecting through or anything like that. You just kind of got, of course, it's all like northwest flow right now down there, but yeah, so looking for boundaries and it's the same, little subtle setups is usually more of what you're chasing in Canada. And that's there, and because of that, like, a lot of chasers are wanting to come up to Canada because they want to see an amazing Canadian tornado, right? Of course, who does not want to see an amazing Canadian tornado? Like, for example, this. first of all, before I continue on with this, can you guys? I don't know how well video comes through. Does it? Will it come through like this? Okay, Gabe or anyone that can hear me.
Looks good.
Okay, so maybe or you're coming to Canada. You want to see a major tornado like this, right? So yeah, so you want to see an amazing Canadian tornado like that one in Manitoba, or maybe you want to see this amazing one in Alberta. Hold on, I had it parked at the right spot I wanted, and then my computer rebooted. Hold on, back, 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 back. Just wanted to get the pan up. Okay, it's right here. Okay, so you want to see an amazing Canadian tornado, right? Like those two, like that one in Alberta, the one in Manitoba. Now the problem is that, and I don't think this is just a Canadian thing. This holds true for any kind of chasing. So this is more of a general chasing thing. Is generally those best tornadoes like that, those really photogenic ones, those really nice ones. They're not occurring on the days that are very, very highly advertised because there's just monster parameters and the photographs just look completely amazing, and they're happening on these just subtle days that you can't really, you just got to be there and it happens, right? You can't like forecast that you're going to see this amazing photogenic tornado. I mean, you could to some extent, forecast photogenic tornadoes, but yeah, so it's hard for people to just come up, especially early in the season when you see these, because most people are gonna not gonna come that make that long trek to Canada uh, for a little subtle setup. They're going to make that long trek to Canada because they see a big monster system in June, like we just saw, and everyone's talking about it, and this looks awesome. And I'm going to go chasing, and I'm going to go see a tornado in Canada because everything just looks amazing and badass on the models. And yeah, we're going to see tornadoes. And that doesn't, and then it didn't happen, right? And then and I wasn't surprised by that because uh, I would suggest if you want to chase in Canada, like, and I would come later, in the season when things are more subtle and make a vacation out of it that isn't just storm chasing and find some other things to do in Canada as well. And then also chase at the same time while you're there, uh, and kind of just maximize your experience and time here, and maybe you'll get lucky and see an amazing tornado, right? Yeah, but that's just my 2 cents, and I think that holds true for all chasing. It's just like I usually don't see the best stuff on the big days, and if I do, a bunch of other people see it too, and or the traffic's real bad, and it was a semi unenjoyable experience because of just the circus that's going on around the storm. So anyway, uh, so continuing on, so weather forecasting tools. So I skipped kind of over that, but big difference in Canada. In the United States, you've got the Storm Prediction Center, National Weather Service giving out forecasts like this. You're probably familiar with this. And, if you're new to chasing and forecasting, this is obviously a good starting point to get you started for learning about where storms are at. Well, you don't have that in Canada. You have Government of Canada's ECCC, which is Environment Canada. Uh, what is it? Environment Canada. Uh, yeah, Environment Canada. So I forget what the other two C's stand for. Something. uh, climate. Oh, climate and one other. It's a very weird acronym, but yeah, climate and something else. But Environment Canada, that's all you need to know. They put out a forecast like this, which is kind of similar to National Weather Service. Obviously, it's this one's for the Canadian province or prairie provinces, so which are if you're going to chase in Canada, this is where I would go to Alberta, Saskatchewan, or Manitoba. Yeah, but you see, they put out the hazards. They have a kind of a highlighted risk area. This gray is like their general, you know, like this light green in the States, kind of a general, like, yeah, there might be some rain showers or something. So that's kind of what that minor would match up to. And then you've got a moderate, which is like the slight risk. So like this, it's actually kind of a blend probably between this green and the yellow. Um, and then you've got a higher risk, which is probably like your enhanced to moderate, somewhere kind of in the middle there. And then extreme, which is quite rare. In fact, we just had two of them in June when I was talking about that big setup. So of course, lots of chasers came up here because that drew a lot of attention too. But it was just the models were hinting at the big weather setup. But before that, there hadn't been an extreme risk area like 6 or 7 years before that. So, and then instead of giving like the Storm Prediction Center has your tornado risk areas with the 2%, 5%, uh, they just do like these little symbols. So this would be like how bad the risk or how likely or how what the extremes of the risk is, and then what the actual category risk is. So is it all hazards? Is it tornado, wind, and hail? Or is it just an extreme wind event? But I'm sure like they probably have never given out an extreme that didn't have a tornado threat, would be my guess in the history of Environment Canada. Uh, and then you'll notice here this one doesn't have any like write up or anything. I think that's because there isn't they don't write anything up if there's nothing really much going on. But when they do, they write up what's called a FOCN, FOCN. So the FOCN is like your this down here. So the Storm Prediction Center gives this discussion of what their forecast looks like. And Environment Canada gives a FOCN like this one, which is the same thing, a discussion of what the setup, the storms, and the threat looks like for the day. So that is Environment Canada versus Storm Prediction Center. But maybe you don't care about that, or maybe also you like to do your own forecasting, or uh, there's going to be pretty much the same tools for forecasting, your same models, with some additional ones that maybe you haven't ever heard of or wouldn't have thought to use. But I mainly use up here the same ones I use down in the States. The GFS for long range forecasting, and the HRRR for um, convective allowing, and the NOM Nest NOM 3KM for convective allowing as well. But also in Canada, you've got some Canadian specific models. Like instead of the GFS global model, there's the Canadian GDPS, which is basically the like the GFS, but another model with another to take into consideration. But as you can see, just like the GFS, you can click in. Let's see. Should be able to get some soundings here. There's actually let's go to Saturday. There's actually a risk on Saturday. Oops. Right here. Yeah, so hinting at storms on Saturday here. But yeah, so GDPS, you can see some turning with height, 58 dues. This is earlier in the day, so there's no instabilities built up, no cape. So, but yeah, so GDPS, and then for convective allowing, there's actually an H. Like I like to use the HRRR, and there's actually an HRDPS. I haven't actually used it. I didn't even. I was looking today, and I just noticed it. I don't even know how new that is. It might be fairly new. But there's also a RDPS, so this goes 84 hours out, kind of like the NOM. So yeah, so there's some Canadian models uh, that I've used, like for example, that Didsbury Tornado Intercept. I remember that year it was that was 2023 and the HRRR was struggling up here all for like weeks. I was watching the HRRR and just like missing one forecast after another, one setup. And the NAM wasn't struggling as well. Actually, the NAM usually does about a lot better up here in Canada than the HRRR, but both of them were like struggling that summer 2023 leading up to it. And so I remember just being like, well, I'm just done with those models. I'm not even gonna look at them. And I totally forecasted the Didsbury chase on using the GFS and the GDPS, the global models, and uh, and I was just like, well, I'm just gonna look for, I forget what I was looking for, but the moisture for sure. I was looking at that, and but yeah, so I used just the Canadian models to forecast Didsbury, and but you know, that just told me that severe weather was coming. I didn't see those tornadoes because of those models. I saw that tornado because those models got me to there to then start observing the environment around me. And I was driving to a target I had chosen because of those models. That was just like, well, I'm just gonna get. This is how I chase, right? I'm gonna get to this area that I think I'm not gonna pick a city like 12 hours out. I'm gonna pick a sector, a general area. And then as I get closer, kind of dial in that forecast. So as I was driving to this north out of Calgary, I was looking off to my west on the highway towards the Rockies, the foothills, and I was starting to see uh, towers bubble up. And then I was noticing, I was looking at the surface observations, like the moisture, the tongue of moisture. I noticed this tongue of moisture kind of like wrapping into this like valley in the foothills. And then also seeing these towers going up. I'm like, well, that's interesting. Like, I think I'm gonna stop here for a bit. And I pulled off, I got off the highway and I drove west into the town of Didsbury. Uh, Still, these towers are just kind of bubbling up. But I was like, well, I'm gonna get some lunch before I chase. And so I stopped at this place called what was it called? I've been to it again since then, but it was Donair. So there's this Canadian food called Donair, Donair, Donair. I think it's more of like an East Coast food, but it is basically like a gyro with this Donair sauce. It's like sweet, like almost like Thousand Island sauce. But anyways, I'm driving along and I had Donair before that. Had I? I think yeah, I had it before that at when I chased tropical, well, extra tropical cyclone that came up into the east coast of Canada at Donair. So I saw this Donair place. Oh, I'm gonna eat some Donair. So I pull off the road and I stop and I go into this Donair place and I walk in and I order Donair and I'm only in there for like 8 minutes, right? And as you know, I went in, it's sunny. There's a little bit of towers out in the distance, but I wasn't like, oh, storm is imminent. I was like, yeah, I probably got like an hour till storms happen. And I walk out of that place with my Donair, and I'm like, what the heck is going on, right? I'm looking overhead, and there's like a big animal shield overhead, because then it's all all shaded down. I'm like, what the hell's going on, right? And I open up radar, I look at radar. I'm like, oh crap, this storm just exploded. So yeah, so I drove west and was looking at it. I'm like, man, this thing looks really, really good. And yeah, sure enough, next thing you know, about hour later, I was chasing one of the most amazing tornadoes I've ever seen. So, uh, chasing logistics in Canada. So, as I mentioned, my very first time chasing here in Canada, I didn't officially run out of gas. I stopped with a small amount of gas in the vehicle in this town where the power was out. I had gas stations. So I'm like, well, I guess I'll stop because I will probably run out before I go to the next town. And hopefully they'll get power at in the morning. Worst case scenario, I'll sleep in the car and I get gas in the morning. So it's and it's you could possibly run out of gas even without the power going out, just because when you get out into the open prairie, like there can be some long distances between towns. You have to drive um an hour and a half, and that's just straight, like if you're just driving, not including chasing and stuff between gas stations. And a lot of gas stations on the Canadian Prairie close early. Like by 10 o'clock, gas stations are generally closed. Sometimes earlier in the smaller towns, they'll close like 6, 7 o'clock. Um, so you got to be mindful of that. The other thing you need to be mindful of when you're chasing in Canada with gas is that you may search for gas and be like, okay, we can make it to a gas station. Uh, and it's a co-op card lock. So if you're not familiar with that, a card lock is, yeah, it's a gas station, but you got to have a special membership card that activates it to be able to get gas out of it. So don't like be like, oh, I'm banking on a card lock as your gas, because you'll be screwed. Unless there's someone there, maybe they would help you out if you slip them some 20s or something. They give you a little gas. So yeah, so be mindful of your gas when you're chasing the Canadian Prairie. Self-service is actually pretty good on the Canadian Prairie. Uh, most of the chasing you're gonna do on the Canadian Prairie, and that actually I wanted to go back. That reminds me of something about the models. So most of the chasing you're going to do in the Canadian Prairie is going to take place, as I mentioned, in the Prairie provinces, but in the southern half of these provinces. So pretty much, from this line south and along the U.S. border. And the U.S. border can sometimes cause problems with chasing. So if I forget, we'll talk about that, about border crossings and stuff. But yeah, so one other thing with the models is that sorry. As you can see, like the HRRR, for example, it's not drawing anything north of a certain line. And your visible satellite also, uh, that usually used for down in the States, like your GOES satellites don't see up here as well, I don't believe. So just some limitations there as well. But most of your chasing anyway is going to be down here in the southern part of these prairie provinces, where most of the people that live in these provinces are at anyway. So most of the population's on the south there. But so because of that, the cell service is actually pretty good. And it's better just across the border here in Canada than when you go down into North Dakota. So there's more population here in southern Manitoba than say you go there, go just across the border and the state into North Dakota. There's not that much population in North Dakota. So uh which then before I forget that and talk about border crossing. So sometimes when you chase storms, a lot of storm setups are here on uh right on the border. And where I'm at here is about 30, no, probably about 15 to 20 miles north of the border. Um, and we get a lot of storms that just ride right along that border. So you got to make that decision. Are you going to chase uh, north of the border or south of the border before storms come across? And there's only so many crossings, right? So you have limited crossings of where you can cross. So you got to one decide where you're going to cross at, or which side you're going to start on before a chase. Sometimes, depending on where the setup is, and you're going to have to decide if you need to cross at some point, where are you going to cross? And not all crossings are the same here along the border. So the one just south of me here at where I'm at is a 24-hour border crossing. So there's always someone there working it. You go to the border crossings, there's one, the next one to the west, it closes like at 6 or 7 o'clock at night, 6 or 7 p.m. So you're not going to be able to cross at that one. So it's very important to be mindful that there's limited crossings to get across the border, and not all of them are open 24 hours. So 7 days a week. And of course, if you want to get into Canada, I should mention that you need a passport. So make sure you have your passport. Uh, hotels. So lots of there's definitely hotels to stay at. But again, if there's no gas, there's even less places with hotels than there are places with gas. So be mindful of that. Uh, that when you're chasing that, you might have to drive a couple hours to the next closest town to be able to stay at a hotel. So, but the hotels, on the prairie are actually pretty decent. Like a Super 8 here in Canada, is a lot nicer than Super 8 down in the States, for example. So, but yeah, there's, any of the hotels are decent. And then of course, when you get into the bigger cities like, uh, Brandon, Manitoba, or Regina, Saskatchewan, Winnipeg, Calgary, Edmonton, they all are going to have a lot of hotels you're familiar with, like Holiday Inn, nicer hotels you're familiar with, like Holiday Inns and Hiltons and Hamptons and stuff like that. So, paper straws. I always got to mention the paper straws. So, if you get a beverage, you get one of those big drinks at like McDonald's, and you're expecting to sip on that drink for the next couple of hours while you're chasing. It's going to come with a paper straw, and within about half an hour, that paper straw is just going to start falling apart. So don't expect to do that. Maybe bring your own metal straw if you so choose, so desire. Other chasers. So there's not a lot of other chasers up here. Even the other day, or a couple weeks ago, when we had a bunch of people up here, which was a lot of people for up here. Uh, it wasn't a problem. There's plenty of gravel road network here. It's a great road network for chasing here on the prairie provinces, unless you get close to the border. And of course, like anywhere, it has its places where the geology changes all of a sudden, and you have some issues with rivers or stuff like that. So, but for the most part, especially across uh, southeastern Saskatchewan, southwestern Manitoba, and yeah, even pretty much all of southern Saskatchewan, all the way to Alberta, all the way to Calgary, is pretty much real wide open and nice road network and stuff. So, and you can just see for miles. Like I've looked on radar and I'm like, oh, that store was like 65 miles away. I'm gonna go drive north to see if I can see it. And then I leave town and I look 65 miles to my northwest, and I can actually see the base of the supercell, right? So you can see a long ways here, which is nice. So be able to see stuff like that. The border. So we talked about the border. So the last topic, and I guess we're getting close to the end here. We got 10 minutes. Why chase in Canada? So I guess before I say anything is that to me, chasing in Canada, at least, especially when first came up in 2018, but I think it might be over now after this season from what I've seen here. But back then, it was like Canada was like the last frontier. Um, kind of like there's not a lot of places that haven't been explored in the world. Uh, but even Canada obviously has been explored. But at least like this was like, well, there was not a lot of places where people haven't storm chased and seen tornadoes, but Canada's still kind of like last frontier. So, but yeah, but that's just changed. Just last year, I know a few chasers came up, and I think some big intercepts I've made up here, and then a few new chasers coming up last year. Bunch of chasers wanted to come up this year for their first chase in Canada, and sure enough, there were a couple of dozen new chasers coming up from the states I saw chasing up here. People that like, these the little town that I go to all the time for Walmart and Best Buy and stuff. Not little town, but little compared to bigger towns in the States, but a lot bigger than the little town I live in. But yeah, seeing those people here in Manitoba was really weird. All these people I see down in the States all the time chasing storms when I'm down there. Here they are in my hometown, so or the town I live in now. So yeah, it was weird. Uh, but yeah, Canada offers a place to chase when the USA chasing shuts down. Like I mentioned, the Death Ridge over the summer, the high pressure setting up over the States, no storms happening. Those riding storms come up into Canada or up in Canada or just Canadian setups in the summer. So and I mentioned amazing long open views and yeah, it's remote and empty, and that to me that's bliss, the last frontier, right? But yeah, it'll always be remote and empty. Like I said, I'm not too worried about it because there will never be uh, hordes of chasers coming up for subtle setups that could still produce, what I'm looking for. So yeah, that's it. That's my presentation. I am done.
Love
Questions?
it, Aaron. I have a question. I'm going to steal the first one here.
Okay.
So you mentioned gas stations sometimes being few and far between, hotels maybe even a little more rare in comparison. What about Tim Hortons?
Uh, Tim Hortons. I mean, if there is a more than one gas station, there's a Tim Hortons. So they're pretty common, but you're not going to find them in the little towns. You know what you will find, and even in the little towns, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? I just had it on the tip of my tongue. Um, if you can always count on a Subway. There's always a Subway in these little towns. So
Well, hopefully they have coffee. That's what I was getting at is there always a reliable place to get a nice fresh cup of coffee. And I know
co-op.
Tim Hortons can do that. The co-op,
Yeah,
okay.
Tim Hortons, but the co-op actually, there's more co-ops. You can find a co-op everywhere, and they actually have a decent cup of coffee. So I like it better than the Tim Hortons coffee, actually.
Let's see here. Got some questions in here for you. Storm Chaser Jack Kelly wants to know, are the police stricter up there in Canada? I know you mentioned the speed limits changing from the imperial system to the metric system once people cross the border. I'm sure that throws a few people for a loop and they maybe end up not driving the way they're supposed to. But how generally are the police in terms of normal drivers, but then also if you do have an influx of people from the states, do they try to take advantage of that situation?
I've they're not. I wouldn't say they're stricter. In fact, they're probably more lenient of anything. Like, you don't in the States, you drive anywhere and there's always a cop sitting somewhere trying to look for speeders, right? I never see Canadian cops like clocking people and just camping out trying to hunt for speeding victims. uh but yeah, so and this past year is actually the first time I've ever seen a lot of chasers come up here. Or this past couple of weeks, like that's the most I've ever seen. So and I didn't I would say like seeing a cop actually in Canada is pretty rare. Like you don't see a lot of cops. So it's it's a little different up here, right? Like they have police that work multiple towns, right? And so they'll go spend a few days in one town and then they go to a different town and spend a few days, right? So like, yeah, it's a little different up here. It's not enough resources to just have cops sitting around eating donuts, pointing a speed gun out the window at school zones and stuff. Plus Canadians for
What?
the most part are pretty lawful drivers, I would say.
Yeah, there's a pretty prevalent stereotype that Canadians tend to be some of the nicer folks around. So,
Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right. Next question we have coming in from Radar Shark. They want to know about the Canada warning system. Why are they so freaking large? Why do they last forever? What is going on there?
Yeah, they're actually, believe it or not, are better than they were. They used to be like when I was telling you, like when it was 2018 and that tornado warning went off in Saskatchewan, it was like 100 miles away. And the whole southern province of Saskatchewan was under a tornado warning, right? Like, what the heck is going on? This was 2018. That would be like all of northern Indiana being tornado warned, right? For a storm, like Fort Wayne having a tornado warning because of the storm coming into Gary. Like it just doesn't make any sense, right? So it's got a lot better. So now it's instead of Fort Wayne being under a tornado warning when there's a tornado near Gary, it's like South Bend is under a tornado warning. Yeah, I don't know. That's probably you guys probably don't know South Bend, but yeah, it's just gotten better. Like it's not as bad, but it's still nowhere as near as precise as the National Weather Service, which is their boxes can fit within a county sometimes, depending on the size of the county. But yeah, and it's very precise of where that tornado is going. There's still like some weirdness with the Canadian size and the shapes and stuff. So, just like anything, it's all comes down to money and resources. Like to be able to develop a warning system that is precise like like that wasn't free, right? Like the National Weather Service had to use tax dollars that you paid for and hire a bunch of programmers and engineers to engineer that system to be accurate and precise and to be really, really good like that. And the United States has immense tax dollars to work with, right? So just the purse is much bigger. Environment Canada, like I was showing you that website for Environment Canada, like they don't even host it like at an official government website, or at least they didn't. Like you used to go to like the University of Manitoba or something to be able to get this data. Like it was just they had a random server that they were allowing them to use or something, right? Like so there just isn't a lot of like resources and funding to go towards that system. That said, they are putting stuff towards it and they are getting it better. In fact, they were supposed to roll out a new system this season like a month ago that was supposed to be much more closer and precise to the National Weather Service's system. Uh, but they ended up having to uh, postpone that, push out the release date. So yeah.
All right. Greeny Boy WX is next up with his question. And just want to let you all know that we will stick around here for a little while longer, but if no more questions come in, we will probably cut it short here. So if you guys have anything that you'd like to ask Coach Aaron here, now is the time. Go ahead and get that in. Greeny Boy WX asks, I noticed that the Scarth supercell had a very thin updraft. Was that a mini supercell that happened to produce a violent tornado?
Uh, Yeah, I think it was fairly small supercell. It wasn't yeah, it definitely wasn't a big supercell. It was definitely a low precipitation supercell, which obviously probably made it look smaller on radar. So, but yeah, that's why you could see that whole occlusion and see that updraft and just the tube from the ground all the way up. It was just because there was low precipitation. It kind of formed that kind of Pacific front dry line feature. And yeah, so it was just real carved out, real visual, real photogenic. Again, it wasn't like I'll tell you that day, nobody would have like if that day came up today, nobody down in the States would be driving up from anywhere, even from North Dakota, they probably wouldn't be driving up to have chased that day. Uh, so that's why I'm saying like you've got if you want to chase something I mean, you could chase the really big, obvious setups. Obviously, that guarantees you're going to see a storm. But if you want to see like the best stuff, I think like you just gotta like get lucky and pick a couple of weeks or a week and hang out in Canada during the summer and chase what you can. And again, make it not just about storms. And maybe you'll get lucky and see a real nice Canadian tornado. So, although I will say the Didsbury one, I did for I did see that one kind of coming. Not that tornado, but I saw the severe setup coming like a week out. Um, but yeah, but I was also kind of real dialed in and wanted to chase Alberta. So yeah. There's always a little bit of luck there when it comes to tornadoes, right? Like
I hadn't really thought of that angle before, but I like that a lot, especially in this day and age where everybody is complaining about chaser convergence. You can get guaranteed chasing. It may not be the same frequency of available setups, but you'll get some guaranteed chases with beautiful scenery and open roads. If, like you said, you just head up and take like a 2 or 3 week vacation in the summer to Canada, and you'll get an opportunity to be out there alone with your thoughts and not having to brave the traffic, the conga line, as Skip Talbot calls it. So I actually like that a lot, and I think I'll probably use that in future live sessions when people are asking questions about chaser convergence. Like, hey, Jayjack says if you want to make sure that you don't have chaser convergence, just head up to Canada for something that's like a lower end risk day, and you'll be able to chase to your heart's content. Might not even see another person on the road.
yeah, exactly. Like that's why like I said, like the big days are like that's like probably the worst time to go. But it's the best time to go if all you're worried about is storms, right? So
All right, and I think that pretty much takes care of all the questions. I'm going to sweep here our chat and see if there's anything that we missed. Radar Shark did say they know a YouTuber from Canada who says there are some strange attractions on the side of the road in Alberta or something. Is that anything you can speak to?
I haven't seen that no. But I would if I was gonna visit any province in Chase, I would definitely would go to Alberta. I would recommend that one. As far
There's
as
no
like
bears. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
well, I was just gonna say as far as like having somewhere to visit and a chase as well. Like I would probably like Alberta's gonna offer you the best options of things to do other than chasing. So
Are there any bears in that region of the country? Or are they pretty much shunted off to the west and the north where the mountains are?
no, we have black bears like here in Manitoba. I mean you gotta go a little bit north, not very far, like an hour north. But yeah, we got black bears, but you know, they don't really mess with you. But yeah, if you go into the like the Rockies, obviously you got grizzlies and stuff in the Rockies.
I'm sorry, I'm getting some of my questions out of the way here. What is it like chasing at night in Canada? Do you have much illumination on the roads, a lot of wildlife hazards? What's that whole situation?
Well, I mean, it's pretty uh no, I mean it's pretty wide open and desolate, right? I mean, I'll tell you, I just totaled my vehicle, and that's why I think we're this is the reschedule of that one, right? Like I drove 13 hours home after a chase a few weeks ago, and crossed the border and got 5, 10 minutes down the road, not like 6 or 7 minutes down the road after crossing the border and hit an elk at that highway speed. So and totaled my vehicle. So yeah, it's definitely some wildlife road hazards here in Canada. And I know I remember Reed being up here chasing one time in like 2019. He hit like a giant porcupine and damaged his vehicle. So yeah, you got some definitely have some road hazards up here. Moose. You definitely don't want to hit a moose. That would be really bad.
Yeah, those things are built like tanks, aren't they?
Yeah, and they're very tall. So like you clip their legs and then they come through your windshield. Not good.
Yeah, man. I
I think
gotta
that
tell
I mean
you,
the elk almost came through my windshield, but the hood kind of like crumpled, I think kept it from going up because it actually went up and like its legs or something spacked my roof rack and dented it and knocked my Starlink off and stuff.
yeah, that's the only thing that I'm actually scared of when it comes to chasing is driving at night. I hate driving at night in country areas. I just feel like it's constant anxiety because every single little thing you see twitching or shining or refracting and off to the side of the road is about to jump out at you. I'd much rather just try to find anywhere at all to just pull over and sleep until like 5 or 6 a.m. when it starts getting light outside.
Right. Yeah, I didn't before, but I do now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's rough, man. Really, by the way, I know I said it privately, but really happy that you ended up being okay too, man. Because like you said, it was very close to coming through the windshield, and those can sneakily be some really bad situations for folks when that happens.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's like probably the most dangerous thing in that situation, right? All the airbags
Yeah.
blew and stuff. But yeah, yeah. It coming through the windshield is probably the most dangerous thing that could possibly happen in that.
Yeah, you've heard horror stories about like the either the antlers or their legs just continuing
Yeah,
to thrash around once they get inside your cabin, and then, pretty tough for you at that point. You're buckled in and your airbag's out. What are you gonna do?
yeah. I think this thing was dead on impact though, so
Not much chance. Got
no, like
it.
it flew and it never hit the road after it was running full speed and it just
Yeah.
launched and it slid up, hit the top, launched. I don't think it ever hit the road after that. It landed in the grass. Yeah, it was pretty violent.
Yeah.
But I didn't get hurt at all. I was fine, right? Yeah, so I
The
got
unglamorous side of
a little
storm chasing.
scratch on my thumb, but I think from the airbag.
But yeah, I think we're all happy that you're okay, Aaron. Can
Yeah,
live to chase another day. And thank you very much for running back the presentation on Canada. That'll be great. That it's just a one shot through. I'll edit it up and make it look super nice for all of our members and to all of you people who were hanging out with us here tonight. Nice little intimate crowd. We appreciate you chilling.
yeah, no worries. Thanks.
Cool, cool, everyone. Have a good night. See you, Aaron.
All right, see you guys.